What a week! There has absolutely never been anything like it. We told you it was going to be unbelievable. And there's only just about an hour left before the last 5 minutes. Okay, if we could get kind of settled down here. We've got a few things I'd like to cover with you here before we all break up and go back to our individual towns and cities and country that so many of us have come around the world to gather for this incredible thing called Herbalife. I think one of the real treats for me this weekend have been not only the camaraderie that everybody's been able to build over this last few days, but I think that all of you, a lot of you, especially in the summer and so on, got to see me and Jim Rowan and so on, and we talked about how incredible it was going to be taking this thing around the world. And of course, for me, it's a lot easier for me to see what's happening with Herbalife, because not only are we in the stages of planning it long before you ever see what's told to you in the different meetings and event by event, but of course I'm seeing a lot of you country by country as I travel around the world almost 200 days last year to make certain that all of this could come together here this last weekend. But I would imagine for you as an individual, as you've heard about the 17 countries and you've heard about how incredible it is, you probably have to agree with me that this weekend has probably maybe given you the slightest little vision and maybe the glimmer of hope that we truly are going to take Herbalife country by country and language by language, and we truly are going to take this thing completely around the world. These guys are ready to rumble. Also, I'd like to give a very special thanks. Well, ever since the beginning of Herbalife, we've always tried to build leadership and have had people who have been coming up and telling their stories and, of course, helping to lead the way and do their meetings and so on. And this last year, it was incredible, the leadership that sprung out of doing all the supervisor training success workshops that happened all this last year. And there's no question in my mind that the ones that are in the future will absolutely be a knockout. But for those of you who may have been around last year and have been able to see the leadership that's growing out of it, you'd probably agree with me that what's happened with the trainers that came up here over the last days have been outrageous. And could everybody help recognize them for all their hard work that they did here? As we started out this weekend, it's been an incredible weekend. You know, we started out the weekend with some training, and we found out right away that it was just absolutely 100% out of control. Certainly, as I made it up the aisle there for the very first night at the extravaganza, I could feel it being out of control as everybody tugged on my shirt and wrapped my tie around my neck and threw their babies around me and everything else. Probably the big question over the weekend here was, can you give us any final comments, Mark, on what do I really do to make it? What is the final inspiration that maybe you can, give all my group just before they leave? What could you do to make them just light up as they leave the auditorium and so on? And I think I'll tell you what I've told all the distributors since the very first day that we got the thing started. And if you'll notice all the speakers that came up here, they said it. They all had maybe their own way of saying it. But I'll tell you what I've always told everybody, and if you'll notice everybody's been doing it, they all use the products, wear the button, and talk to people. I was with one of my sixth graders, and some people that went to school with me. Little sixth graders, where are you? Hey? And Phil Blurton, I remember at the last year's extravaganza, he comes up to me in the back room and he says, "Mark, you're not even going to believe it. You're not going to believe it." He says, "I found the secret to Herbalife." And I said, "Well, what is it, Phil?" He says, "You're not even going to believe it. I finally learned it from John Tartle." And I said, "Well, exactly what was it that John Tartle said to you?" He said, "He told me all I had to do was use the products, wear the button, and talk to people." And I said, "Phil, I don't know if you know this, but I've been telling you that now for over 12 months. He said, "Yeah, but when John Tartle said it, I believed it." Hopefully here over this weekend, we've been able to show you a number of different people that were up here on the stage that maybe you can identify with. If we had the time and the ability to go through all the stories that are in this room, it would shock everybody in this room. To be able to see the different personalities, the different languages, the different individuals from the different circumstances they've been able to walk themselves through and be able to be proud Herbalife distributors, it would absolutely 100% knock your socks off. And I get a chance to hear all the stories. But hopefully through the weekend, you've been able to identify with one or more of the people that were up there, and you'll say to yourself as you leave this weekend, "Hey, if those guys can make it, maybe there's a chance for me." And take it from a person that only went to 9th grade in school. And take it from a person that's been using the products maybe a little bit longer than everybody in the room, and has been wearing their button longer than anybody else in the room, and I've been talking to people more than anybody else in the room. Trust me, from a guy who knows from where I came from and how I grew up and the family life I had, trust me, I can tell you with absolute sincerity, anything is possible if you just keep using, wear, and talking and do it over and over and over and over and over again. The wildest dreams you've ever thought of can come true in Herbalife. And just a few ending comments here and winding up just before we get to the last 5 minutes. Certainly using the products is something that's important. Wearing the button is certainly obviously important. Talking to people is certainly important. But if I could give you any other hints, all the guys were saying, geez, you know, give them a little something else. I could only say a couple of things. Number one, my advice to you is as you leave these doors and as you go back and talk to people on the street on your way to the airport and on your way to your airplanes and on the way back to your countries, do yourself a favor. Number one, treat everybody you meet equal, because you just never know who's going to be the person that you meet that could end up being the next person on stage here in less than 10 months from now getting their president's team pin. You just don't have any idea. If you look around the room here, there's all different colors of skin, all different personalities, all different languages, all different backgrounds and so on. If there's anybody, okay, that knows that anybody can make it, it's me. And hopefully over this weekend we've been able to show you that they're all different personalities and different walks of life. Don't miss out. When you talk to someone, make sure that you give them your absolute all. Don't mess up with your presentations. Don't judge them by the way that they look, or necessarily by the way their hairdo is, or the way their jacket looks, or the way their t-shirt looks, or the way they're dressed. Hey, if I had made that fatal mistake, I would have passed right by Doug Stuntz. Doug Stuntz, when he came to his very first meeting, was wearing a tank top. He was wearing his best sandals to the meeting. He had his groovy looking little beads on. and he had this old gray primer-stained van that we made him park out in the back. And we let him sit there in the meeting room, and he started watching what was going on, and he said, hey, maybe there's a place for me. You just never know. Treat everybody that you know nice. There's going to be people in your organization that do $50 and $100, and you couldn't make the fatal mistake of trying to teach them like they're a nobody, or try to make them feel like they don't exist and so on. Don't make that fatal mistake. They might be doing $100 a month now and 10 years from now, because you let them feel good about the organization.